As you get older, you get wiser, right? Well, I hope so. And that's what this video is about. Believe it or not, well, I do believe it. I turned 60 this month. And on the one hand, when you're at this stage of life, that seems impossible to believe. But on the other hand, of course I'm 60, right? As the old song goes, every time I look in the mirror, all the lines in my face growing clearer. The decades really do fly by. And so I want to offer 10 reflections, 10 life lessons, if you will, that I think my younger self would want to know. And perhaps you, as someone with a number of fewer decades under your belt, can learn from too. Before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge and give a hat tip to Gordon McDonald, who is now in his mid-80s, who on my podcast a few years ago, shortly after he turned 80, gave a piece called The View from 80. And it was so inspiring. I've had so many people tell me that they were so moved by that conversation, they were moved to tears. And I will link to the video in the description for you. You can watch it simply by clicking the link. But with that said, here is my attempt at 10 life lessons I've learned 6 decades in. Lesson number 1, success dies, but character lives. Here's what haunts me. Your kids are never going to pull out your subscriber count at your funeral, all right? They're not going to replay your best podcast episodes or mention that killer presentation you did. You know what they're going to talk about? They're going to talk about who you were, how you loved them, whether you were actually there for them or not. You see, and what that is that's character. And character isn't just important. Increasingly, I think it's pretty much everything. Knowledge, you can know a lot, you can be smart, but the Bible says knowledge puffs up and achievements definitely fade, but character lasts. It's what people remember about you, right? So maybe you're chasing a promotion. Well, I promise you, the glow of that promotion fades before you've told the last friend that you got it, okay? The platform you built, well, guess what? Somebody else's is going to be bigger next year, and you're going to be behind. Honestly, when they talk about the hedonic treadmill, it's a very real thing. You just return to your base level of happiness when you reach a new accomplishment or have more money in the bank or whatever. But character, like the slow work of becoming more like Jesus, that's what really transforms your legacy. Strangers on social media may love you, but if your kids don't, you're winning at the wrong game. And if you're crushing it online, but your spouse feels alone or criticized, something's broken. Sanctification isn't just like this esoteric theological construct. It's actually God chiseling away at who you are. He's chiseling away at who I am. And, does he care about what I do? Sure. But he's way more concerned about who I am. And without character, what do you have left, right? Well, honestly, just a pile of stuff heading to goodwill and achievements nobody cared about as much as you do. Okay, number 2, give the people closest to you your best, not your leftovers. So here's the danger, right? The people that you love the most, your family, your spouse, your kids, your best friends, your team, they are the ones that you are most likely to cheat. And here's how you cheat them. You skip dinner with the family because you know what? They'll understand and you're busy, or you work through a vacation, you bring your laptop to the hotel or even to the beach because you've got important things to do, right? After all, you're a big deal. I fell into this trap as a young leader and nearly destroyed my family, and it destroyed me. And here's what nobody tells you about. At 80, if you're lucky to get there, all you have left is family and a few close friends. All those important work relationships, well, they pretty much vanish the moment you leave your role. If you talk to any retired CEO, I challenge you to do this and ask them, how many people are contacting you these days? A lot of them will tell you their phone's gone dead. It's just silent. Arthur Brooks talks about that, and he says there's a big difference between real friends and deal friends. Deal friends stick around for what you can do for them. Hey, I want to be on your podcast, Carey. Hey, I want you to speak at my conference, right? Real friends, Arthur Brooks says, are useless, but not worthless. They're useless in the sense that they're not going to advance your career, but they're invaluable because they're the ones who actually care about you as a human being. Those are the people who are going to be at your funeral. Your colleagues, they're not going to be there. Your friends, they're going to be there. That's why I made this decision. made this probably 15 years ago. I want the people closest to me to have the best experience of me. Not, some random follower on YouTube who thinks I'm amazing. I want my wife to have a better experience of me than anybody who follows me online. So, that's what you have to ask yourself. Are your closest relationships getting your best, like the best of you, or are they getting your leftovers? Third principle, understand that everything compounds, literally everything, okay? So life gets better or life gets worse in direct proportion to the decisions that you make in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. So when I turned 50 a decade ago, I had a friend of mine, we were talking on the phone, and he just said, you know what, your 50s are going to be incredible. They're going to be fantastic. And I pushed back and I said, buddy, I won't give you his name, but I said, you're not a prophet. Like, how do you know what my 50s are going to be like? They could be disastrous. And I remember his response to this day. He says, I've seen this pattern hundreds of times, and he had a few years on. He said, Carey, you did the hard work in your 30s and 40s. Now you're going to reap the benefits. You know what? It turns out he was right. Maybe he is a prophet. Okay. My 50s have been my best decade, hands down. And I just wish I knew what I know now when my kids were younger, so that, my 30s could have been better. But here's a lesson. Everything compounds, okay? Those small compromises with integrity, the flirt when nobody's looking, they become character implosion left unattended. The debt you're ignoring, that credit card debt or that student debt or consumer debt, it becomes a financial prison the older you get, because even interest compounds against you or for you. The marriage tensions that you're kind of like just putting a lid on, barely on a boiling pot, they become divorce papers, or you end up staring into this icy space that you've seen way too many elderly people embrace, where they're there for breakfast and they don't even talk to each other. They're ignoring each other, all right? But the opposite is also true. Every time you choose character over compromise, health over comfort, because it's just comfortable not to be healthy, or relationships over success, it compounds every single time. So make your choices now, right? Small changes in your 20s or 30s become huge results in your 50s and 60s. Fourth principle, avoid magical thinking. Your past is the best predictor of your future. So you know what's seductive? And I've been guilty of this too, right? Thinking tomorrow is going to be magically somehow different when you do nothing about it today, right? I see this all the time. Leaders who think, I'm going to wake up magically more disciplined tomorrow, or more present with my family. It's just going to happen. Or somehow I'll get more financially stable. Like, we'll figure that out down the road, right? As though somehow their marriage will be transformed while they sleep, or that God is just going to intervene without them taking any responsibility. But life, for the most part, doesn't work that way, right? Your future isn't created by wishing. It's cultivated by habits. So what is your life going to look like in 5 years? The answer is, look at your life now. Look at your calendar, look at your experience, look at your bank statements from the last 6 months. That's your actual trajectory. Your marriage in a decade is being shaped by the conversations you're avoiding right now. And your legacy is being written in the small decisions you're making this week. And your waistline and health in 5 years, it's determined by what you're eating for lunch today and whether you're getting a workout in before dinner. All right. So if you're waiting for magical intervention, you're going to wait forever. Fifth thing I see from 60. Wisdom is a better but less popular teacher than pain. So pain is an expensive teacher, but at least you're never going to forget the lesson. I've learned a lot from pain. All right. There are words I've spoken I can never take back. There are decisions that haunt me to this day. There are relationships that I ruined thinking that I was right. So pain has taught me a lot. But here's the truth. Wisdom is offering you and me the exact same lessons, minus the pain, minus the scars. So for over 25 years, I've read the Bible in a year. And what strikes me as I go through the book of Proverbs every year for a quarter century is a full third of the book. The first third is basically Solomon begging us to choose wisdom before pain forces our hand, right? He said, don't have an affair, don't have an affair, don't do it, you're going to regret it. So many people go out and have an affair. Don't do this, you're going to regret it. So wisdom is calling us ahead of time. It's almost like he's watching a train wreck in slow motion, pleading with us to change tracks, but a lot of people don't listen because we just make a mistake and then pain becomes our teacher. So what you're going to do, and what I do naturally, is default to learning things the hard way. We kind of nod at wisdom going, yeah, thank you, and then dive headfirst into disaster, right? So here's the irony, and this is why I am committed to learning from wisdom, not just pain. Pain is expensive. Wisdom is free. And here's the kicker, all right? This is kind of fun. There's never a lineup for wisdom, never a line, all right? Pain's got a long line of people waiting for the next lesson. So you can save yourself some time and potential catastrophe. Choose wisdom as your teacher. It's available right now. The sixth thing I see at 60 is to seize your internal locus of control. So there are basically two kinds of people. People who blame everything and everyone for their misfortune, right? I was late because traffic was bad, the weather was bad, right? Team issues, not my fault, clearly their fault. Marriage tension, well, she just doesn't understand me at all. She doesn't understand what I need, right? So I struggled with a lot of this stuff until I discovered what experts call an internal locus of control. And that is the idea that I have agency, high agency, that regardless of the circumstances, I can choose my response. And I've got some even microscopic control over the outcome, even if it was really terrible weather or really this person's offline. I have got some agency. And when I embrace the 7 words, as far as it depends on me, suddenly I wasn't waiting for the world to change, all right? It started to change my world. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what can I do about this? Like, what does this make possible? Instead of waiting for perfect conditions, maybe create some better conditions. You're not going to be able to control everything, but you'll stop being a victim of your circumstances and start making progress. The 7th thing I'm seeing at 60 is examine your motives. This one's huge for me. Been spending a lot of time on this in the last decade. And no matter how hard you try, your motives are always going to be mixed, right? Even as I'm recording this video right now, hoping to help other people, I feel a familiar tug. I want you to watch it. I want you to share it. I want the views to go up, right? I want it to go viral, let's be honest. So I have fought with selfish ambition for years. And while it's a little bit quieter now, it still shows up unveiled. And I think it's a tug of war, right? So here's what I'm concluding. I mean, check with me in a decade or two. You may never fully get rid of mixed motives, right? We live on this side of heaven. But if you see them clearly, you can deal with them. So get honest about what's really driving you and then surrender the drive again and again to God. Why does this matter? And here's what I'm convinced. Unexamined motives drive you until they destroy you. So if you don't know what is motivating you, you're going to get so tripped up on growing your YouTube channel, getting big on social media, growing your church, whatever you happen to be doing. You're going to be so caught up in it and you don't even know why. Like, what is driving that? What is underneath that, right? You got to go there. Sure, you can end up with a story of redemption. Yes, I was terribly selfish and motivated and everything, but why do you need a story of redemption, right? Why drift into the conditions that create something terrible that is in need of repair? So don't do that. Just look at your motives, and when you see selfishness, stop and say, okay, I got to acknowledge that. I got to surrender that. I got to yield that. That's what I'm trying to do on a daily basis. The 8th thing that really excites me from the view at 60 is to work toward mastery. So think about it. If you're in your 20s, you're probably a generalist, right? You do what you're assigned to do. You're in a company, they're like, go get coffee. You're like, yep. And it's a good thing to say yes to a lot of things in your 20s. But when you move through your 30s and your 40s, something interesting happens. It refines and narrows your passion, refines and narrows your skill set, and helps you hopefully zero in on what you're truly gifted at. So as I head into a fresh decade in my 60s, I see this as a chance to pursue real mastery, to get as good as I possibly can at just one or two things. So think about a samurai swordsmith, right? It takes a lifetime to perfect that craft. That's what I want, the chance to achieve mastery in one or two areas of my field. So if you're wondering, well, what is that? I want to be an excellent interviewer. I want to be the best I can possibly be, and I want to write and think well. So what do? Well, as you age, narrow your focus, okay? Get really good, zone in on a couple of things, and when you found those things, step on the accelerator. Learn and hone as much as you can. Your 10,000 hours are accumulating, and what you want to do is you want to direct them, and you want to get better, faster, and work toward mastery. Okay, ninth thing, you want to advance. Don't cruise or retreat. So, I've been through my 50s now, and I've seen some friends over the years unchecking boxes of things they used to do that they no longer do. Now, I get it, okay? Everybody's health is different as you get older. Desires change with time. But what if you see the season of life you're in, whether that's your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or beyond, as a chance to discover and try new things, right? Like curiosity and newness, I think, make you better as you age. So I've never been particularly athletic. I had a lot of asthma as a kid, etc. But I've gotten better over the years. And at 55, I took up downhill skiing again, largely because my wife never gave up skiing, but her friend, she had nobody left to ski with. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. So she wanted a friend to ski with. And I thought, well, that'll be good for our marriage, good for us. So I picked it up again for the first time since my kids were little. So I picked that up at 55. At 58, I skied the Rockies for the first time in decades, and at the local ski hills, now I'm doing black diamonds all the time. So I got better at something, right? I got curious, and I learned a new hobby. I picked up some other things over the last few years, from weightlifting to snorkeling. Like, I'm a beginner at snorkeling. I know that sounds like, wait, 4-year-old snorkel. Yeah, but we're going to take a snorkeling vacation and we're going to really explore things. I think it's going to be great. I've gotten really good at smoking meat over the last decade. My wife got me a big green egg for my 50th. I really enjoy making brisket for friends. I love experimenting with AI. I'm learning to become more financially literate. Yep, new skills at this stage. Learning how to sharpen kitchen knives. I just hate dull kitchen knives. So I've gotten really good at sharpening knives. Don't read anything into that. And brewing first-rate home coffee. Never did that until last year. And I'm learning calligraphy. Okay. So as you get older, you're going to drop things you no longer want to do. I get it. But keep adding new experiences and skills. And if you're married, do them with your spouse as much as you can, so you don't stagnate, grow bored, or grow old. All right. Final thing, retirement. Consumption is a trap, but contributing isn't. I've been thinking a lot about retirement. So retirement's like this really interesting concept. A lot of my friends are talking about it as I move into my 60s, but it's a relatively new construct. Throughout most of history, people worked until they died because, well, number one, they had to, and generally they died younger. So I'm very fortunate. I love what I get to do. I love building into leaders. We've joked with friends that we're taking our retirement as we go. I've taken July off for the last decade. My wife and I tack on a couple of extra days on, leadership trips I do. And 6 weeks a year is plenty of retirement for me. I don't need more at this point. But heading into a new decade, I've got no plans to step back. But instead of seeing this decade as a chance to consume, I'm viewing the decades ahead as a chance to contribute, to mostly give, not mostly take, to make a difference instead of taking endless victory laps. Because if you think about retirement, the way it's defined, at least by the advertising industry and the way a lot of people do it, it's just like, take your victory lap, go enjoy it. There may be a day where my speaking invites stop and time passes, and suddenly I don't have market value anymore. But market value isn't the same as value. So let's say I can't do podcasting, or nobody subscribes to my YouTube channel, or, I don't get invited to speak at conferences around the world anymore. Well, at 80 or 85, I might meet with local leaders or pastors for coffee, or gather some young leaders at my house, or mow my neighbor's lawn, or brush snow off a stranger's car in a Toronto parking lot. What's the deal there? Well, the longer I've thought about it, the more I think retirement is a trap, because the meaning is found in contributing, not in consuming. So I want to contribute. I don't want to consume endlessly. So instead of imagining the decades of your retirement as just endless consumption, ask yourself, what can I do to contribute? What can I do to give, not just take? How can I make a difference, not just take more victory laps? I look at it this way: you can only lie on a beach for so long. There's nothing wrong with lying on a beach, but man, do it for a couple of weeks. Then how are we going to get back? How are we going to give? Meaning is found in the giving far more than meaning is found in the getting. So whatever decade you happen to be in, everything compounds, okay? So the question becomes, what changes do you need to make now to have a better and more fulfilling future decades from now? Let me know in the comments.